Yeah. It's been about 2 days since I last recorded it. But still kind of curious and stuff. Also, first time trying this and talking to Buddy about whether I like it or not. So I'm just gonna record it here so I can look back, see what my answer is. Came up with the idea for a channel name of being the worst study guide because it is horrible. It works for me, but I don't know if it works for whoever. I don't want to ever get that fear of tearing your fingernail off. It's a great shirt. That does not help. I'll pause this real quick. Just literally using a plastic comb because that's. Don't want to hurt my finger. Ultra feisty mango. It's not bad, but it's also not the best. I'd say a solid 7, maybe 0.2. Certainly refreshing. I like it. It was refrigerated, so it's not exactly as energy fulfilling as it would normally be, but hey, to it. Where in was I? Thinking like an economist, learning to love modeling on page 39. I think I already read that part, so I'm going to start here rather than here. Modeling to understand the world. Many economic questions and problems are complex. For example, trying to work out the best way of reducing unemployment, or analyzing the likely impact of boosting government spending on the economy, or even understanding how geopolitical events in the Middle East will have impact in the Middle East will impact global economic growth. Big sentence. Would like to put a comma in. These issues are so complex. In fact, that economists believe they're trying to think about these problems head on in all their complexity and are almost bound to fail. Don't get ahead of yourself, essentially. Some things are too extreme to solve in one situation. Table. It keeps going. You can see my finger. It's like this. There's not much more to the table. I don't like this camera angle. Anyways. Instead, economists create models. Okay, an economic model is a simplified representation of the real world. A good model is one that focuses on the particular variables of interest while moving irrelevant or less relevant details to one side. An example of a model is a street map. A good street map includes useful details such as roads, along with their names. It probably also indicates the number of places of interest and perhaps train stops. You don't expect a map to tell you where every tree is on your route or the location of every traffic light. In fact, you'd be possibly annoyed if it did, because it would clutter up the map and make it much less useful. Google Maps is pretty good at telling where stoplights are. I find that's helpful. But it only tells you stoplights on your course. Anyways. The same idea applies with economic models. Cut the irrelevant stuff out in order to focus on things that matter. We use many different models in this book to help you understand different aspects of the economy. Some economists are criticized for making too many assumptions about people or the economy in their models. They're told that their models are too simple and the real world is much more complex. That may be true, but economists prefer to have a simple model because they can understand rather than restart the sentence. That may be true, but economists prefer to have a simple model that they can understand rather than a complicated one that they can't make heads or tails of. Moreover, when they understand this simple model, they can slowly complicate it to see what happens. You need to learn to crawl before you can walk. Back with the don't overcomplicate things. Got like an itch right on the bottom of my nose. It's hard to talk while you have an itch. Man. This either the camera angle or just the camera quality, because I did not look this bad in it. Anyways. Sorry, just tired. It's like what? Can't check on my phone, but it's around 10? And I woke up at 7, worked out from 8 to 9. So things happen. Okay, next new section. Ensuring that intuition doesn't fail you. For another another reason economists like working with models is that human intuition alone can lead people astray. Here's an example. A river flows between two cities, Coaltown and Playville. Coaltown is a manufacturing business that releases chemicals into the air that then come down the river as acid rain. That's bad news for Playville people, because they use that river for fishing and recreational service. Everyone agrees that it costs Playville about $10 million per year to clean up the mess. Playville residents say coal town firms should either stop polluting or compensate Playville $10 million. Coal town firms have a different idea. They say, pay us $10 million and we'll agree to change our methods and stop polluting. Who's right? In terms of stopping acid rain, both are. Under Playville's plan, coal town firms can avoid paying $10 million by switching to clean technologies. Under Coal Town's proposal, not making that switch means its firms forego the same amount. So under either plan, Coal Town firms give up $10 million, but $10 million by not switching. The real difference is that the plans is property rights. Playville's plan basically says that Playville owns a river and Coaltown has to pay to use it. Coaltown plan implies the opposite. So choosing one plan or the other is equivalent to assigning ownership, but the effects of pollution is the same either way. I think it was a pretty good job understanding themselves. I won't go into it. The trickiest part for understanding it was my messing up on reading. Yeah, I don't read often. This is like my first time really getting into reading in years, because like phone addiction and such. So I can tell my skills have dropped. There is a counterintuitive conclusion that you probably wouldn't have reached without some economic modeling. But it's true and supported by data. It's supported by evidence. The beauty of modeling is that it allows economists to find results that would be almost impossible to find otherwise. And they have a whole section right here. Can't see, but it's like highlighted there, and now you can see it better on page 41 for it. Economists often split microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of individual firm behavior, and macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole. Decades ago, they were very different fields with different ways of doing things. Microeconomics stressed the importance of modeling individuals and firms as optimizing agents. This means that when people and companies make choices, they consider all possible options and choose the one they prefer most. Economists say that the individuals maximize their utility and firms maximize their profits, while in macroeconomics often uses models that are less rooted in strict optimizing behavior. The reason is, in part, is that the outcome of egregious variables such as spending across all firms is not the outcome of one optimizing consumer or a business person, but many. Unless all households and businesses are the same, what macroeconomics call a representative agent, the aggressive behavior can be hard to derive as the result of strict optimization exercise. So macroeconomists macroeconomists have often used models that seem reasonable, if not formally optimal, and that seem to capture the basic features of the economy. basically what they're saying is something along these lines. Microeconomics is the study on single firms. Well, in the name. Microeconomy, macroeconomics, macro. Micro, macro, small, big. It's hard for macroeconomics to use the same principles as microeconomics because they're often seeing the bigger picture. While in macroeconomics, they might be looking at one company and seeing how they optimize. Macroeconomics can't really take that one single company into account because they're paying attention to every other company too in the field. Damn, I really need to train my speaking ability because I'm getting thirsty very fast. But then again, this is training speaking ability. The modeling approach. Although it runs the danger that one would just adjust the model in a reasonable way every time the model mispredicts. As a result, this approach can seem a bit ADHOC, bit ad hoc. Not happy with the situation, many economists felt that because the economy is made up of millions of interactions between individuals and firms, macroeconomic models should have as their building blocks of microeconomic foundations. So macroeconomic models, explicitly or implicity, should have optimizing agents within them. In short, most economists feel that good macroeconomics should be based on sound so-called micro-foundations. A lot of technical jargon spitting out. I think they really summarize at the end with, in short, most economists feel that good macroeconomics should be based on so-called micro-foundations. So they want macroeconomics to use the principles that microeconomics found out in their models, just up in large scales. Just to help make sure it's more accurate as a model, because the entire paragraph was talking about how some people aren't satisfied with it. So they brought a little bit of both into both of them. Between macro and micro, taking a bit of micro from macro, a little bit of micro, and giving it to macro, just the foundations and principles. And chapter 3. About 2 hours, 2 chapters. Not 2 hours yet, that's about an hour. Maybe an hour and a half. Okay. Short run and long run. A modern economy produces and distributes a vast array of goods and services. Cars, appliances, education, health, services, sports equipment, and much more. In many, if not most economies, the bulk of activities organized through market mechanism, which is surprisingly really because you can't see or touch it. Now I don't have my school sheet Chromebook here, so I'm just going to assume what market mechanism is based off context. As Adam Smith noted over 200 years ago, the world is the market world like an invisible hand. The market works like an invisible hand to guide a multitude of economic endeavors that result in consumers getting the goods that they want for reasonably low cost. For example, no one is directing all people involved in getting bread to consumers: the flour producer, the baker, delivery driver, and shopkeeper, and so on. No one needs to tell them what to do or make when and where to trade. They just do it. Each producer is trying to do the best for herself. Amazingly, their efforts end up doing well for everyone, as the bread lovers get their fresh, tasty loaves they want, while all the farmers, millers, bakers get paid. Contrast that with the command and control bread production of the old Soviet Union, where bread shelves were half empty all the time. Also, I got an idea. people tend to, I don't understand levels of understanding between readers. So if I'm ever going off to a tangent, I'm gonna like shift. So if you want to skip, you can just see in the video where I'm back like this. Yeah. Similarly, it's a safe bet that very few individuals have the knowledge and ability to create things that we buy. From soap to laptops or legal services, even making a single pencil from scratch would be difficult. You can easily go into a shop and buy a pack or order them online. Again, the market economy succeeds in coordinating the activities of many different individuals to produce to a productive end. Like the invisible hand, rather than invisible hand controlling the market, getting one thing to another, no. Instead of that, everyone just coordinates like an invisible hand controlling it. That's the whole reference. Invisible hand is actually a roughly important concept in economics, I know. I really like this drink. Oh yeah, I forgot to check the lore on these. Sleep later, because tonight we're gonna have a fiesta like there's no Manala? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm assuming it's something along the lines of culture. Ultra Fiesta celebrates the nights that turn into mornings, and the friends we now call familia. Zero Sugar Ultra Fiesta blends juicy mango flavor into the ultra we love, finish off with a load of our Monster Energy blend. Yeah, this is like, I did Nadal. Not my language, so I don't know. So when I said it was like ultra feisty mango, no, it's ultra fiesta mango. That's what I don't assume you actually like read it out properly. Should have turned because I was off on tangent. Anyways, so economists love markets where individuals meet to trade for their mutual benefits, and so many different goods and services are exchanged. But however much you love something, you have to admit that occasionally it can misfire. Even the most ardent Star Wars fans has to concede that Phantom Menace was a mistake. Similarly, even economists realize that market economies can sometimes get sick. Fortunately, both have franchises and the economy can also heal. Fortunately, both movie franchises and the economy can heal and recover. Examples being, what was U.S. Steel? What was that other one? John D. Rockefeller. He had a big oil magnate company that was not just a company that was full of monopoly. U.S. Oil? No, maybe. I think it just had a generic name along the lines. U.S. Steel was Andrew Carnegie, also another real big monopoly that was horrible for the economy. That's what happens when someone owns all of a single market. They can set the prices to whatever, and if you want the product, you have to pay that price, even if it's unjust. Like, people need food, so the company can sell. So the company can sell that food for however much it costs to produce it, however much they want, even though everyone has to pay for it. Like, you could sell a loaf of bread for $50. That's absurd, but if you're the only one selling them and everyone needs bread, people are going to buy it. Hence why monopolies are illegal and often destroyed by government agencies. In this chapter, you will learn that economy is health in the short run. My bad? Can get sick. In the long term, when it can recover from a temporary, if prolonged, illness and get back to it on its normal, healthy track. You also get a sense of the different approaches macroeconomists when thinking about the short run and long. The difference between these timeframes also raises complications for policymakers. Following surgery, a doctor may prescribe strong pain medications for a short period of time, but you don't want this to become a long-term need. Similarly, the best practice for dealing with short-run difficulties may be very different from what makes for a good long-run macroeconomic policy. That paragraph was basically talking about how illnesses and like the actual hurt an economy can take often is healed over time through, it might take a while for it to heal, like the 2007, 2008, 2009 real estate crash. People usually say 2008 because that the whole year it was crashing. It was horrible. Started in 2007, ended around 2009. And oftentimes, the pain medication they referred to was stipends that, despite being helpful, you can't have it a long-term thing simply because with the stipends, inflation goes up since they're printing money for it. New section, separating trend and cycle. A good physician examination typically includes a temperature, pulse, and blood pressure reading. Blood work to check cholesterol and glucose levels is also common. And if you're lucky enough to have reached 50 or so and be male, you're also likely to get your prostate probed. None of these procedures would be very informative, though without some measure of what's healthy or normal, and the standards of good health can change over time. They just like to give a lot of examples that people are more, I should be facing that way, but like I'll just do this for now. Just examples on how, on principles that they also apply for other things like the economy that we're talking about right now. Facing this way now. For example, in the US, a passenger car with a fuel mileage rating of 20 mpg miles per gallon, rating of 20 miles per gallon would have been a standout in 1975, when the average across all cars was only 13.5 miles per gallon. But that 20 miles per gallon rating today would look positively sick given the average mile per gallon has since climbed to over 31. Likewise, in the olden days, even a glimpse of stalking was enough to shock people. Now the Vermont Teddy Bear Company will not only ship you the fuzz-stuffed bedtime companion, but a collection of intimate toys with 50 Shades of Grey to go with it. Over time, the real GDP that's consistent with a healthy economy changes too. For one thing, the workforce grows. So does the capital machinery available to them. On top of that, both the workers and machines become more productive due to educational and technical progress. So what we are capable of producing when operating on top form rises with each year. Economically speaking, 1965 may have been a good year for the US, but if we were still producing today the level of GDP that we produced then, we'd have to conclude that the last 50 years have not turned out very well. In short, we need an evolving standard of economic health, and if we are to identify at any point in time how well or how sick the economy is. Let's chat about that. They start off with that example of the doctor, like the medical checkup, and how we check all sorts of things like cholesterol levels, physical health, and how oftentimes the health standards change over years. Same with economic standards, like the whole thing about the real GDP. It's constantly going up, which I wouldn't say constantly going up, but the hope is that it is. We often need, the workforce grows, machinery goes, so if it stays the same consistently, that actually usually means something bad is happening, and workforce productivity is going down, and machines productivity is going down, since since machines and workforce is going up. So in order for it to stay at the same level, and while one goes up and the other goes down, the average would still be around here. That's horrible. Not horrible, just it's not good, because that means standard of living is going down, so it could be horrible. I hope that explained better. Your single is much better than me. And then I go this. Yeah, I'm just nitpicking. About 25 minutes into this, I think I might cut it out at 40. Okay, rising potential of GDP over time. As noted in Chapter 2, the U.S.'s real GDP has grown about 2.8% on average every year since 1965. Where does that GDP trend come from? I'm sighing because I already see a mathematical equation in this. Remember that GDP is production. That is output. In turn, GDP can be expressed as the total labor force times the amount each worker produces. Q equals L times parentheses start Q divided by L parentheses end. I'm not even going to try to figure out what that is. It follows that underlying trend. GDP growth is some combination of A. What? Oh, there's had like parentheses there, so like ended parentheses, but they didn't have a start one, so I was confused. Combination of A, as in like, you know, when you're writing bullet points, there's the 1 dot parentheses, 2 dot parentheses, or you can have ABC. I'm assuming that's what's happening here. Okay, it follows the underlying trend that GDP growth is some combination of A, growing in the labor inputs, and B, growing in the productivity of that labor. As for the first of these, the labor force can change for a number of reasons. The main one is, of course, population growth. More people generally mean more workers. Obviously, this relationship does not hold strictly at all times. Changes in the average age of the population or net immigration can also affect the growth of the labor force at any given time. I could say something about immigration. It's very important for our economy, but that's a little too political for where I am now. I'd rather stay purely into studying and such. Over the long run, though, the labor force and population overall growth at pretty much like right where my mustache is, it's so faint you can barely even see it. I'm not even gonna show it because that's like creepy, but like it's itching there. Technically it shouldn't be itching, but like I'm gonna stop talking about that. That's pretty weird. Over the long run, though, the labor force and population overall growth, what calm would be nice. Over the long run, though, the labor and population overall grow a pretty whoever agreed to this publishing, I'd like to say read it if you were the level of someone actually needing this, because it can be a lot of... Anyways, over the long run, though, the labor force and the population overall grow at pretty much the same same rate. Output growth that emanates just from the input growth is not very They literally just said this was sexy, or no, not very sexy. Output growth that emanates from more input growth is not very sexy. That's because that does not indicate any increase in the general well-being or most people's standard of living. For that to rise, we need to have gains in output per worker or productivity growth. as I was saying with the whole people going up, machinery going up, but if the output's the same, that means this one's going down. And this being workers' productivity and how much they're getting paid. I don't like this whole turning thing, but I guess it's important. I'll get used to it soon. Fortunately, that tends to happen as well over time for two reasons. One, that businesses invest in new capital, and workers are more productive as they have more machines to work with. The other is technical progress. Both workers and machines get smarter with each generation, though among people there are some notable individuals exceptions, to be sure. I don't need to explain any. Over the last 50 years or so, the workforce has increased by a bit over 1% each year, while worker productivity has grown on average a bit less than 2% per year, though recently it's been getting slower. Together, these two factors account for the roughly 2.8% growth in real GDP in the U.S. economy as average for some time. Because an aging population means that a smaller fraction in the labor force, as the economy turns from manufacturing to services, we may expect some further slowing down in the growth of potential GDP. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO for short, estimates that it has been more recently growing at 2.25%. I'm just saying neighbor on the roof. I'm propped up against a window. No. 30 minutes. Honestly, I think I'm going to end it here. I'm getting a little bit of a headache. I'm ending at page 46 on the section that reads, Cycling Through the Short Run, Minding a Gap.